Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/get-started for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
Lowe's knows how to help make your Super Bowl 59 party a touchdown. Let us help you prep your home to host with top brands like Charbroil, Blackstone, and LG, so you can be the MVP of game day. Plus, use the Lowe's app to find what you need for a seamless shopping run. Or huddle up with our Lowe's Red Vest associates to help make all your game time hosting decisions.
This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Podcast, Season 7, Episode 15. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And Jonathan is traveling today. He's to his new home, his new abode, and he has just arrived, we just heard. But it's not going to be with us today. So, and Jaime and I were just looking at the notes, and we think it is going to be a fast show, as a matter of fact, only because we don't have a lot of content for today. But to start off with some fact check, I mentioned I mentioned a loose group of musicians in LA that were before the Toto guys who were in the yacht rock piece we talked about in the after show. The Wrecking Crew is who I was thinking of, is a loose group of LA musicians in the 60s and 70s. And they were backing bands on a lot of people, like Phil Spector's Wall of Sound was generally the Wrecking Crew. Out of that, Leon Russell and Glenn Campbell are probably names you've probably heard that came out as solo acts. But the bassist I was talking about is named Carol Kay. And she's most notably, she's on a lot of Motown records and things like that. A lot of Beach Boys stuff that you would have heard over the years, thinking it was the Beach Boys. It was actually Carol Kay playing bass. She played for both Sinatra's Frank and Nancy. She played bass on Simon and Garfunkel records. She played bass with Stevie Wonder, Barbra Streisand records, the Supremes, the Temptations, the Four Tops, the Monkees. And if you know the song "These Boots Are Made by Walking" by Nancy Sinatra, that's the bass part is actually played by, and the beat goes on. You know, Sonny and Cher, and Pet Sounds. You may have heard of Pet Sounds is sort of the competitor to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. And McCartney said that Good Vibrations, the bass on Good Vibrations, inspired some of the work he did on Sgt. Pepper's. So it all comes full circle. So that's an amazing bassist named Carol Kay. And I also mistakenly mentioned Muscle Shoals when I meant to say the Wrecking Crew. But Muscle Shoals was a famous recording studio in Alabama where artists like Dylan and the Stones, Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, Willie Nelson, Duane Allman, Leonard Skinner, and Joe Cocker, Paul Simon, Bob Seger, Rod Stewart, Cat Stevens, George Michael, and even the Black Keys would have recorded in Muscle Shoals. I think it's still going. And both of these are available. There are documentaries on the Netflix for both the Wrecking Crew and Muscle Shoals. If not on Netflix, they're on Prime and things like that. So if you're into that kind of stuff, check it out. Right. And moving on to the headlines. This is actually from Jonathan. Jonathan sent me this. We were at his house to celebrate an early birthday, since his birthday is officially, as we record, 2 days from today. Yeah, so we were talking about Jolene. That was how Jolene Blakelock was listed on the credits on the last episode of second last episode, I guess, of that show, Lower Decks. Lower Decks, that's right. The one. That's the one I'm thinking of. And apparently, yeah, she famously has said no to a lot of things on Star Trek, or when offered things by Star Trek, but I think that she kind of, in the article, it kind of alludes to the fact that she likes the show, so she felt honored to come back and play an alternate universe version of herself, of her character. But Mike McMahon, the person who the showrunner had said or had told her, or she'd heard that to bring what's her name to Lynn. To Lynn is an homage to Paul, right? So another reason why Jolene decided to come back to the lower decks. So that's kind of cool. And Jaime, you got something here about the show that I've stopped watching, but I should probably get back onto.
Yeah, and it's fairly quick to binge too because they're short episodes and they have taken a while between seasons. Mythic Quest released a season 4 trailer, so that's coming out on January 29th. So it'll overlap with Severance, so you can get kind of a 2-for-1 deal there, I guess, if you're looking to do the calculus. And then the spinoff comes out on March 26th.
What's the spinoff?
I believe it was called Side Quest.
Oh, Side Quest?
I think they call it Side Quest. Does it say here in the article? We have this Verge article.
Maybe it's called DLC, right?
Yeah. and this trailer has, modern troubles like AI, and if you create a game that lets people do sandbox things, what do people do? They naturally make their characters have sex, which is troubling for a video game that wants to aim at children. So they even pull them in front of Congress, I think, in the trailer.
Yeah, and the line in the thing, the kids make these, right?
Yeah, they're probably the worst ones.
All right, cool. And I just wanted to go on a big bit of a rant here about, I watched the Golden Globes the other day, and Shogun was nominated for a fair number of awards. And I mean, congratulations to them and all that kind of stuff. The lead actor and lead actress won. One of the supporting actresses won, and I think the show won for something. Best show or something like that. I watched Shogun. Have you watched Shogun, Jaime?
Yes,
you have. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't great, and it wasn't the best TV I saw last year. So I was a bit miffed that some of the people they beat out. In some of the categories that they were in, but I don't know. I mean, it begins with written from, I believe it's a fictitious book, right? Written by James Clavell, I think, back in the 70s or 80s. It was made into a TV show, late 80s, maybe late 70s. Admittedly, with non Japanese actors, so I guess they're writing that. But I don't know. It was. Like Game of Thrones and those kind of things. It had a big budget and it's very, I guess, true to the history of Japan, I guess. But I didn't think it was the best show, and I'm surprised it won all those awards. What do you think?
I wasn't surprised. What out of curiosity, I'm not necessarily disagreeing too hard.
Surprised? You mean wasn't surprised because of the way the votes are counted and the kind of shows that get awards, or
like what? For the best show, which show did you think last year would have fit that?
I mean, I'll need to look at the gold nominees again, but cause, I mean, it lost, like Slow Horses lost to them. Golden Globes. Oh, there's Golden Globes. So let's see who was nominated against them. Yeah, it's funny because they break all these things down into different categories, right? Best performance by an actress. I mean, there were some really cool things. I mean,
let's see. What I found here on Golden Globes winners and nominees is it went up against The Diplomat, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Slow Horses, Squid Game, and The Day of the Jackal.
Okay, so I would have. Day of the Jackal was. I mean, I'm going to talk about Day of the Jackal with my picks. I think I forgot to talk about last week, right? But. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Okay, and in that field, yeah, it's pretty close to the top, but I'm going to vote Slow Horses in that case, right? But, whatever. Who did they go up against for actors and actresses and things?
Let's see.
I mean, admittedly,
their website, maybe I should have looked up on Wikipedia because their website puts it weird. Okay, so female actor in a television series, you have Anna Sawai, who won for Shogun, Emma Darcy from House of the Dragon, Kathy Bates from the 2024 Matlock, Keira Knightley from Black Doves, Kerry Russell from The Diplomat, Maya Erskine from Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Okay, I have no horse in this race, so I guess that one makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think
What's
it lines up with the best actor in a television series drama. Hiroyuki Sanada wins for Shogun. He went up against Billy Bob Thornton, Landman, Donald Glover, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Eddie Redmayne, The Day of the Jackal, Gary Oldman, Slow Horses, and Jake Gyllenhaal from Presumed Innocent.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to go with Gary Oldman, but then what do I know? Daniel Glover was okay, and I've only watched one episode of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, so I'm not quite sold on that show yet. And then the supporting actor, where was that one?
Supporting, wait, what is this? Performed by actor, female actor in a supporting role. Jessica Gunning won for Baby Reindeer. Also went up against Allison Janney, The Diplomat, Dakota Fanning, Ripley, Hannah Einbinder from Hacks, Kaylee Rice from True Detective Night Country, and Lisa Colon-Zayas from The Bear.
I did find the best performance by male actor in supporting role. Yeah, it was, I'm not going to say his name, but he won against Javier Bardem, Harrison Ford, Jack Lowden, Diego Luna, and Ibon Moss Bararak, The Bear. Yeah, I don't know. I guess when you look at it in that sense, I guess it should win. But I guess my rant. Okay, rant off. My rant is not holding water.
I think the issue that I had is, and I'm sure this is easy to find, and this is going to be fact check homework for Jonathan here. The issue I have is the Golden Globes must have a very different period of time they cover versus like the Emmys. Or
right.
Even the Academy Awards, because it's a blend of TV and movies for the Golden Globe. So I felt like, wasn't Shogun long enough ago that we already had these awards? And we did, I think, for the Emmys, which cover a different time period. I'm like, how can you have like Shogun and like Day of the Jackal? They just feel like they're in completely different years to me. In terms of like where they would cover things, or something as new as Wicked feels like a weird kind of, it feels like they have like an 18-month window or something. It just felt like, oh, but Shogun was all the last year stuff. It feels, I think as we talked through, it was probably right for what it went up against. The question was like, maybe it should have been last year's Golden Globe show.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was it. I mean, it was just so long ago that. But it's funny that like when you think about all the great shows that have been on TV in the last year and that didn't get nominated. I guess that's part of the issue too, right? Yep.
Yeah. The other rant that we'll probably get to as we get to the Academy Awards coming up is I think there should be a box office minimum for Best Picture nomination.
How do you mean?
So if you have some weird art house film that like nobody saw because it was in 2 theaters for 2 weeks in like Berkeley, California, I feel like you're so not impacting the art form in terms of not creating, but just like you're literally not impacting the culture. If nobody's seen your movie by the time we get to the Academy Awards, probably means you're not Best Picture. That doesn't mean, just to be really clear, I'm not going to say that like, oh, wow, like this movie earned bazillions of dollars in box office. We're just using box office totals for the measure. I'm just saying like we shouldn't completely disassociate, popularity as a factor. Like, how many times have we said, oh, that film is Oscar bait? Nobody actually wanted to make this film. This was clearly like, I'm a pick'em, World War II soldier. I'm a slave. I'm a pick some sort of weird disability that's intersectional, and pray you don't go up against Daniel Day-Lewis or something, like one of those sorts of things of like, oh, somebody was just clearly trying to win the award. They weren't trying to make art. Right, this is award bait.
But by the same token, though, I mean, but that criteria, though, I mean, there is a minimum that they have to show a movie in a theater for it to be a contender. I mean, because
empty seats is my point, though. Like, I think it needs to be like, if you can't make, let's say, $20 million, like that's nothing. In this era of inflation, where eggs, your local eggs are like $5 to $7, like that's trivial amount of money to make. in terms of revenue. I propose if your Best Picture nominee does not make $10 million at the box office, you're not Best Picture. Like, you just don't qualify.
I mean, like, don't forget that some movies are going directly to streaming, right? So I think the minimum having to be in a theater for 2 weeks that's to meet, like, for the Netflixes and the Apple TVs and so on and so forth. They have to show them. I think Jonathan mentioned that a couple of years ago, that they have to show for a couple of weeks in an actual theater, right?
Yeah, that's one of the compromises that they do, so that something like Roma can end up qualifying and winning. So that one needs some more than just my 30-second rant here of, like, how would you accommodate the streaming era? Now that they do have streaming numbers that are being reported as part of the actually, I don't know which of the strikes ended up getting this compromise. But, you know, when they had the Writers and the Actors Guild and stuff, they started getting more data about the streaming stuff. So I think that might be a, like, okay, $10 million of box office or some number that I won't be able to make up here.
300,000 or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, if it's like, oh, they put it on Netflix and, like, 5 people viewed it, all right, you don't get to qualify for nomination, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, that just on a sort of, like, how do you figure out how well something does? I was talking to Jonathan about this, like, when I was looking for prices on movies on iTunes, right? Or on Apple TV, right? When you go into the store and you look at a category like $4.99 or $6.99 or $7.99, and you'll see really good movies in the top 3 rows. And as you scroll down, it's kind of like they get even more and more obscure. I wonder if they're listed in Apple based on how many people actually are downloading these movies, right? Like, I feel sorry for the movies that are still trying to get $20 for a movie that, like, 5 people are watching, right? you know, I mean, kudos to them for trying to maximize on their investment, but, you know, like, I've been buying movies at $4.99, $5.99, $6.99 because they end up in that bin, let's call it, but there's still a movie I want to see, right? So anyway, yeah, I thought we still didn't know how many people are downloading Netflix shows, but I guess you're saying that the actors were saying they're not getting their fair due based on the fact that more eyeballs are seeing their work than they know about, right?
It was something like that, and I know we covered this back when the strikes were happening, and then they ended up resolving that there was. I'm not saying that they're going to show you, like, a dashboard, but there's more information about how this, instead of, like, most streamed ever, is like, what does that mean? We're not going to tell you the number. Like, it's not that anymore. It may not be as precise, but, you know, you could have an independent auditor be like, hey, like, did this get enough to qualify? And then they look and be like, yep, it did, or nope, it did not. That would be my future world, so that you know, again, I'm not proposing that, like, you know, $1 billion blockbuster like Avatar, pick one of them, would necessarily be the best. I'm just proposing that this, like, what are these films? I've never heard of these films. I'm on a show. I'm on a podcast right now where we talk about this stuff, and I don't know who or what most of these best films are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's a really good point too, and I'm probably the same way. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I think the best movie, like best director, best movie, should be based on the art. You know, it should be based on the quality of the storytelling and quality of the film, the photography, the director of photography, the filmmaking, the actual costuming making. You know, it has to, all that sort of has to be mind-blowingly good. You know, I think that does happen in the case of animation, but because, you know, generally speaking, it wins a lot, right? So, like, I have no horse in the race when it comes to foreign language films, because I probably watch maybe 1 or 2 of them that are ever nominated, right?
Yeah. There's certainly an argument for that. I'm not saying that we need to get it completely away from that. I think the approach I've been sort of thinking about is avoiding the philosophical question of, like, you know, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? You know, nobody's around. Like even if it was like, oh my gosh, like aliens are going to unarchive this, you know, 10,000 years from now, like, wow, this is like the pinnacle of cinema that humans were able to create. But, like, literally nobody else saw it. Then it, in some respects, is like a non-factor for impacting society and culture, right? So I want to get the awards away from like giving awards to somebody who like, wow, that's like a great art house film, but like nobody saw it. So what impact does it have on the society and culture? Sometimes these do grow after the fact. I'm not totally oblivious to the fact that like there are people who say, oh, that's the one that won. Great, let's go watch that one now on Netflix or Amazon or something. So it's not a perfect thing.
But the thing about these shows, and the reason I watch them is because I sometimes go off and find the movies that were nominated and give them a spin, because otherwise I wouldn't know. Like I'm tempted to see. I saw The Substance. I didn't see it, but I saw that The Substance was at TIFF, to Toronto International Film Festival in September, and I knew it had Demi Moore in it, but I just didn't get a ticket for it. But now that she's won an award, now I'm even more tempted to see it. Although it's in an odd category. I thought it was kind of a thriller movie, but it's in music or comedy, which kind of makes me shake my head, when it's compared to non-music or comedy. But
yeah, I think that's another one where comedy gets stretched weirdly. So as an example, for like the Emmys and Golden Globes, I'm like, no, The Bear doesn't belong in comedy. It has funny parts. It might even be arguable and debatable. Is this a dark comedy? Maybe.
Yeah, it's a horror. If you worked in a restaurant, it's a horror meal.
yeah. It's just so dramatic that like, oh, there's a little bit of funnies. It doesn't mean comedy, right? As if like, oh, well, this is a musical. Why? Well, there was a guy whistling while he worked in the background. Like that's. I feel like comedy, and I'm not original in saying this. I think comedy should be its own category for this sort of thing.
Well, it's musical comedy versus drama, right? So
best musical or comedy literally just means best musical is going to win, because you're never going to have Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, or American Pie, or There's Something About Mary defeat any musical that comes out that year, like Chicago or Wicked or whatever. So it kind of feels like if they separated out musical and comedy at all, I think they should go a little bit further and separate out comedy into its own category. Or consolidate it. I'd be okay with consolidating it too. It's like, hey, this musical better be The Sound of Music, otherwise it's not going to win.
Cool. All right. Well, that brings us to the main part of the show where we talk about something usually Star Trek related, but we're short of Star Trek this week, so we're going to do some Star Wars and some Apple TV Silo. So we'll start off with the Star Wars Skeleton Crew, Episode 7. We're going to be in so much trouble episode, where they were told by their father when they come close to the planet, you're not going to be in trouble, but, Fern's mother says that you're not going to be in trouble, and then she says, I think my mom lied. We are going to be in so much trouble, which is where the title of the show comes from. So this is the almost home episode. They get all the way to through the barrier and pretty much land on the planet. I mean, like they get there. That's sort of the spoiler part of the show, part of this talk. But yeah, interesting. By the way, I want my 2 hours back. I went and watched Goonies to try and sort of get the sense of what you guys kept, because you keep comparing this show to Goonies, right? So I went and watched Goonies, and it's a Spielberg movie. It's got its moments, but it's got a lot of really, oh my God, can we get through this part moments? I mean, the actors were good and that kind of stuff. The story was okay. The kids calling this stuff the rich stuff all the time. I see what you mean about that being odd. But yeah, it was a little hard to take as far as movies go. But anyway, so
it's extremely 80s. Like that's another.
No, it's true. That's true.
It has all the 80s isms in it. So although modern media cuts and does edits a little too frequently for my tastes, like you've got ADHD or something, you can't go longer than 3 seconds. The 80s and the 70s before, it would be like, let's just have a 10 minutes of silence here. Just put it to an extreme. It's like, okay, that's a bit much.
Yeah. All right. Well, so anyway, do you have an elevator pitch for this one?
I went with Captain Silvo finds the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Okay. Yeah. My big problem with this episode was the threatening the kids with the lightsaber part. pedophilia with lightsabers is what I kind of called this one, right? Although it wasn't really pedophilia. It was basically abusing kids or telling them they can't tell their parents what's going on, and he holds up the lit lightsaber to try and show them that. And in fact, spoilers if you haven't seen the episode, it ends that way too. Like where they finally meet up with their parents, and he pulls out the lightsaber and turns it on to remind them of this, abusive situation he's put them in, right? So anyway, I get it. He's a pirate and a criminal and can't be trusted and all that stuff, but still, it's a Disney show, right?
Yeah, and hopefully when you were watching the Goonies, despite all its 80s-isms, I had brought up the fact that, like, I enjoyed the aspect of, like, these children are in actual danger, right? Modern movies tend to stay away from that to the extreme of, like, not having... And the Goonies was like, hey, the Fratellis, especially the mother, was, like, at least heavily threatening to mutilate the kid's hand in the blender, right?
Yeah,
like, that's
true,
scary as a little kid.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my God, they're going to kill him. Not just like, oh, pew, 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 but like, oh, that's grisly.
Well, they are shooting at the kids too when they're running through the cave, right? So
right.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting stuff. But anyway, yeah. So good show, a good episode. I think because we finally get the parents are back in the story, trying to send a message to the kids to give them the code. I guess I don't know. They were going to send them a code to get them through the barrier. I didn't understand they had that little floppy disk thing they put in there, right?
Yeah, I think there was some sort of, identification system that they could use. I mean, we do find out that oh my God, what's the name of the ship? It's like the Onyx.
Cinder? Yeah, the Onyx thing.
Is it Cinder? Onyx Cinder?
Yeah, Cinder. Yeah.
Is specially made to be one of those ships that can pass through. So, I guess it would make sense that you would have some sort of, day pass kind of thing that you keep hush hush. Like, all right. They couldn't come through in the normal thing. We can't just stop, the money train, so to speak. So let's have a way to get through. I think that's what the parents were trying to do, seeing if they could get the kids through.
Yeah, give them a fob to get through the alarm system, right? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it turns out that, like you said, the Onyx Cinder is actually a stolen mint ship. Which, since Atten is a mint, the Old Republic mint, it's interesting. So, another weird point is where Captain Silvo Jawed goes up to the pile of gold and just picks one up. I'm surprised he didn't slap his wrist, the robots, but.
Yes, if anybody goes to the U.S. Mint, I highly recommend on a tour you try that and see what happens. What they do to you.
Yeah. And interesting that it just starts falling like cascading or water falling onto the floor, right? So makes a big chocolate mess. But anyway, what else did you take from the show? Like Pew Pew Pew, I guess we have to talk about.
The kind of coolest part was seeing the Pew 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 was going through the storm defense system. It's kind of interesting that it's it's a normal planet underneath, and it's nice and beautiful, and they barely perceive the barrier as it is because it's like a big candy shell but hollow that separates them, and it's this. This maelstrom that oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the Wolfman former mutineer, former captain who's like, hey, what are you wasting my time here? This is absolute trash. It's a good hiding in plain sight sort of thing, right? Make it look like
Brutus
something.
Is his name.
Brutus, yes.
Captain Brutus, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool to see that, like, it's not just, grin and bear it. It's actively trying to dissuade you from getting in, and then getting in is dangerous because of all of the stuff that's swirling about, and the electric shock stuff that comes out, like an artificial lightning that ends up blowing up ships. So I thought that was
the first couple of ones that try to go through get just zapped out of the air like bugs in a bug light, right? Mm-hmm. But you also remember too when the kids are first seeing the stars, they've never seen stars from the inside, right? Because the barrier obscures all that, right? I remember, like in the early episodes, you'd look up in the sky and you see these red dots, which are the beacons that are the lightning beacons that Jaime's talking about, right? In a grid formation in the sky, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, and then there was this sort of back and forth tussle with the captain, Brutus, like you mentioned. And I think at some point, I think Jod gets himself a blaster and just kills Brutus and takes over as captain of the crew, right? Again.
Yeah. It's pretty. Again, coming back to like, there's actual danger here. Like, it wasn't like, oh, okay, the guy's caught there, and then whatever. It's like, no, he just Game of Thrones eliminates this guy. That was a bit shocking to me. I was like, oh, okay, the guy's hidden, and I kind of forgot the, like, there's actual danger on this show kind of thing. And Captain Silvo is very, very much a pirate, bloodthirsty.
Yeah, cool. And I can't remember anything in particular, like in terms of our normal, Star Trek tropes or Star Wars tropes that I
wrote as semi Easter egg, semi quote. I forget the elephant mom's name, but she says, "I have a bad," and then
yes,
dot. She doesn't actually technically say the phrase, but it was clearly intended to be the phrase.
Her name is either Numa or Chalt or Kona. Hard to say because they show a picture of the person, but they don't show them in costume, right? So could be Mari, could be Pocket, and it's all these female actresses that are in the show. Oh well. I guess Mari is KB's mother. Might be Numa, I guess. Did you know her name, or you just? No,
I just wrote elephant mothers because I couldn't remember the name.
And I didn't look up. Okay. Yeah, no, it's a good episode. And we finally get back. We finally find actual Ed Atten, and we end on a bit of a cliffhanger, waiting for the denouement, as it were, right? Where the kids finally get back with their parents, and that's where the show ends, before a single word is said, right?
Yeah, and it did have me wondering, like, Captain Silvo is pretending to be, from the Republic emissary, and he's gotten this far, and he's like so close to getting out. And yes, I assume there is some danger of the kids saying something there, and since he is seemingly force sensitive, it's probably not as simple to calculate, can they prevent him from getting out? But it was my last question here of, like, why did he decide to use the lightsaber in that way? He's almost out. He almost just can get away with it. Will that cause them to shut down the vault and lock him in? Or is he using this to, under the guise of, oh, I'm a Republic emissary, I also happen to be a Jedi. That's why, you guys haven't seen this. It's not that common. You guys have heard of Jedi, right?
Yeah.
It ends on a very hard cliffhanger. So that was my question of, like, what is his plan here now?
Yeah. I mean, because the parents are going to turn around and go, put that toy away, put that thing away. You're going to poke somebody's eye out. Mm-hmm. Right? So, or all of a sudden they're going to be threatened by him. But yeah, actual pirates. Well, and he keeps trying to get his ship to let the ship through, right? And they won't, right?
Right.
Yeah, he kind of ends 33 as well with a nice lightsaber chop, right? Which is kind of a harsh, good character, right? We've lost him a few times, and I don't know, maybe somebody can put him back together. I don't know. Lightsabers seem to be a little, while they cut your arm clean off, they kind of singe it at the same time, right? So
yeah.
I'm sure they do the same thing to robot connections, right?
Yeah, and I think with the droids, we've seen, like, C-3PO busted up into parts, and so I think you can reassemble them with the right parts.
Yeah, the right interfaces and connects and stuff. Cool. Well, looking forward to episode 8, which is the season finale, to find out what is going to happen next, right? And now no doubt he's not going to get away with it, right? So whatever that means, and what about the pirates, floating around outside waiting for him to come through, right? So
yeah, it definitely does feel like they can wrap it up. It doesn't seem to me right now that they need a hold my beer moment. I think they can legitimately wrap this up in the final episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll find out what the true story is. I mean, it does, bit of a spoiler, it does sort of say in synopsis on IMDb, it does say what the sort of episode is about, but I'm not going to talk about it today. So
now, a word from our sponsor. Now, back to the show.
Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to Silo. We forgot to talk about Silo last week, so we have 2 episodes to cover this week. We have The Dive, episode 7, and then we have The Book of Quinn, which is episode 8. So The Dive centered around, I think where we had left. What's his name now? What's it? Solo had taken her helmet away when she was asleep and passed out, and so she wants it back, and he said, well, I'll give it back to you if you go and turn on the pump for me, or whatever it is he wanted her to do, right, to stop the water from draining or filling, I guess, the silo. So he helps her hook up a rig, and they, with a breathing apparatus, and she goes down, and he tells her about the bends, which is kind of an interesting thing because they talk about the bends, or she has to deal with the bends on the way back up, because I think she accomplishes the step, but halfway through, she all of a sudden can't breathe, right?
Yeah, because the idea was she was going to go down, connect the power to the pump. She's got to pull a rope that's just attached to the bell where Solo can learn is going on.
Pull her back up, yeah.
Yeah, and as she's coming back through the second half of this piece, like the rope is cut and it just falls down, and she has to go back up because she can't breathe anymore. Somebody has sabotaged the situation and taken Solo away.
Well, I initially thought it was Solo, right? I thought he was just being a jerk again, right?
Until they show the blood and other stuff. But it did definitely seem like he was cutting her loose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then in the actual silo, do you remember what happened in that part of the story? Were there still...
In The Dive, you have Bernard introducing Lucas, the guy who was sent to the mines. To the Legacy, which only... I wasn't sure if it was only the IT people or only the mayor. I'm guessing maybe it was the IT people.
His assistant, his...
Shadow.
His Shadow, yeah.
Yeah,
he's the one that gets to see it. Plus the mayor, plus the judge, right?
The extra area, he gets to see the iPad with Siri on it. The Connect Siri, iPad, ask it questions. It's just like way more high tech than the stuff that they normally have in the silo. And they're trying to use that to figure out. I know it's Quinn. What was it? Whatever Quinn's first name is, the revolutionary from 140 years ago. They're trying to figure out his cipher, and they think that it'll be hidden in the larger archives that they have, both physical books. They do have a substantial library of physical books, and then the digital data that's on that iPad. So
and then in the people in the deep down, the mechanical folks are. What happened with them? Do you remember?
So on do they send the firework up? Or not the firework, the messages up in The Dive.
Yeah, the paper saying, don't believe IT, they lie. Yeah.
Right, and they shut off the power to show that IT has its own power source.
Yeah. And then Bernard runs in and turns off the lights so that they don't think he had, so it's an anomaly, right?
yeah. And the new judge, Sims, and his wife are doing a Macbeth and Lady Macbeth sort of thing of like trying to play both sides and find a way to get power. And Carla, I think her name is, the like really mechanical lady, turns on one of IT's cameras so she can get a message over to Bernard because she cares about her former wife, her ex-wife that's still the head of supply.
Or what's her name? Is it Carla? Is her first name?
I thought Carla. Oh wait, no, maybe I have the names reversed. It's Walker and Carla. One of them is captive, the head of supply, and one of them is the lady who was like homebound. She never left her workshop until recently.
Well, that's Martha. Yeah, Martha Walker. Yeah, and the other lady is. I'm just looking at Carla. Carla McLean is her. We find out is her wife, right, or former wife, but they're divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and. Yeah, that's when Walker turns on the camera to sort of signal IT, right? For some reason.
Yeah, because they've shut down the messengers who go back and forth. They're still blocking off that part of the connecting to the silo. They've turned off the radios because the sheriff Billings was starting to say stuff that was not exactly in line with what Bernard wants people to hear. The computers have been shut off, so you can't send messages the same way. So that was her only way to reconnect. I assume it's wireless or something. She kind of just hangs it up there or maybe there's a connection inside of the wall.
Well, I remember Juliet finds them behind the mirrors, right?
Yeah,
the cameras. Yeah. So yeah. Actually, some of the pieces of paper said Juliet lives apparently, but I'm just watching it. I'm watching the trailer on with no volume. Yeah. So, and then of course the Book of Quinn is the latest episode, and this one, Juliet manages to get back up, and she comes up too quick. She finds, and she has to go back down. A jury rigs a pipe she can breathe through, and just goes and hangs 20 feet below the surface, which is what he's told her she needs to do to get rid of the bends, right? And then she gets to the point where she can't breathe either, right? So she comes back up, and then she follows the trail of blood, and then she finds that it wasn't Solo that sabotaged her, but some other people that have been hidden in Silo 17, right?
Yeah. Apparently, there's other folks who've been hanging around because they do threaten her with the bow and arrow. In fact, she got shot by one of them.
She gets hit. Yeah, she gets hit with a bow at one point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a deadly. Where she got hit in the chest was kind of a deadly spot, right? A little bit if she was on the other side of her chest, she would have been dead, right?
Yeah. It really depends in a lot of these things, like where they end up getting hit.
Yeah, and then she says, "I'll shoot you with another arrow if you're not careful," right? Like, well, you already were a jerk once, right? Yeah. Anyway, and meanwhile, who's the guy? Lucas goes and discovers or tries to find out the key in the book. He's trying to figure out which book has the keys in it, and then he discovers that that Quinn has relatives who are still alive, or descendants, right? So he goes to try and muscle his way into them and find out if there's any books that they have and the family has that may have been passed down through generations, right?
Yeah.
And they call him out on his brutality, and he does come back later and apologizes, and they help him out, right?
Yeah. He ends up getting Quinn's copy of the pact, so that helps him start decoding the letter. Bernard does tell him that Quinn destroyed the records 140 years ago in order to prevent this cycle of every 20 years or so having a revolution. So they've had 140 years of peace, or roughly 7 generations worth of peace until just recently. So it's one of those deep, dark secrets, right?
Yeah.
And they do bring up the water thing, that you can put some sort of drug in the water that makes people forget. That was something that the guy who's currently injured, the guy with a beard, that was used to throw a Molotov cocktail and start the ruckus.
Yeah, and then Bernard does give Walker an audience, or Walk as they call her, and basically threatens her partner, and convinces her to rat on the people in Mechanical on occasion to feed him information, right? So no good can come of that.
Yeah, and they end up figuring out that people breaking into supply are arrested by the raiders because they know exactly what's going to happen. They've got their mole now.
Yeah, and she had already said to everybody, "I don't want to be involved in your revolution. I want to go back to my space." But Bernard knows that she wants to see her ex again. There's still a relationship, and then he doesn't let her visit her. She lets her see her through a window, and finds out that she's actually not being treated very well, right? So, so it sort of gives him that's his version of the lightsaber, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Good show. Well, we'll have to see how they wrap this up. They have one more episode left? Yeah, one more episode left.
2 if they keep it to 10. They had 10 in the first season.
Oh, did they? Hang on, that's 7.
Yeah, and we know that there's 2 more seasons.
Yes, you're right. There's 10 in 2013. There should be 10 in this episode. Yeah, so we got today the Safeguard came out, or it's out today. We could watch it today. Mm-hmm. And then, actually, it didn't show up on my Apple TV now you mentioned it, Jaime. But, yeah, and then Into the Fire will be the last one. So hopefully Juliet will get back, and, everybody will be happy again, and they'll, sleep well at night until the next season.
Yeah. Right? It'll be interesting to see how they pace things. I know Jonathan said that he had read the books, right?
Yeah, he's read. I think there's 2 books, but he said the first 2 seasons are the first book. Yeah, it's called Wool, the name of the book. I have a copy of it here. I haven't started reading it yet.
The criticism I would give early to this season is that I suspect in the book, I bet the Juliet section is completely separate from the Silo 18 section.
You mean jumping back and forth kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the Juliet and Solo part to me feels like it's so stretched out. It feels like for what actually happened, it could have been resolved in like a couple episodes.
Yeah, like 2 days or whatever, yeah.
And in this, and I bet it probably plays better in the book, but for me, it feels like they were a little bit concerned, like, well, we can't just have the main actress not show up for like 6 episodes. We got to put a little something here. And so it feels like it's drawing that part out longer than it needs to. Where this season, I'm enjoying Silo 18 a whole lot more. And I'd almost want to see, Silo 18 by itself for a while and then go back to Juliet instead of constantly having a section every time. Where, again, maybe I'm wrong, maybe the books have it be just as long, but it just feels like it's stretched out too long for how much we got out of it compared to the Silo 18 part of the story.
Well, yeah, right. The Silo 18 stuff has been going on for a couple of weeks now, like in terms of like how long the story feels, right? It feels like quite a number of days between, whereas the stuff with Juliet and Solo could be done in like 2 days in terms of like how long it takes. I mean, she's had a couple of sleeps, right? A couple of meals, and yeah, so maybe 3, 4. It's not even a full week in terms of like how much time has passed, right? In that telling of the story, but because she's not going to sit around on her, twiddling her thumbs waiting for something to happen. She seems like she's continually building and making and trying to solve the problem, right? To get back to 18, right?
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see for the next 2 episodes what's going on. All right. So unless you want to talk about some Dune stuff, we can move on to the watch list. No?
Yeah,
I'll take that as a no.
Did we not cover Dune last time?
We did. We finished Dune. I'm being facetious.
Oh,
I never want to talk about Dune Prophecy.
I was like,
again,
there's like a 7th episode or something that I missed.
No, I just no. There will be no more Dune Prophecy if I have my way on this podcast, because it was so tiring. Anyway, cool. All right. Well, let's move on to the watch list. Do you want to go first, or should I go first? I'll go first.
Go for it.
What do you think? Go for it. Okay. Yeah, I think I forgot to mention Day of the Jackal last week. I think we talked about the remaking of the Day of the Jackal several months ago when it was first announced. And I am, oh crap, it's on right now. I'm a huge fan of the original movie from the 60s with Robert Fox, where he plays the Jackal. And his mission is to go into France and try and kill Charles de Gaulle, right? And so he's got this really cool, the gunsmith makes him a gun that he puts into like you know what an MG is? Those little tiny cars, it's like 2-door sports cars, MGs. So he takes out the exhaust and he cuts the exhaust in half, and he puts the barrel of the gun inside the exhaust, like it's a dual exhaust, and he kind of diverts it. So there's like a hidden chamber in the exhaust where he puts the barrel of the gun. And there's a famous scene where he goes to the mark and gets a melon and marks a circle on it like a head and hangs it from a tree, and then takes this gun which he assembles, and he tunes the sight on it by shooting at the melon, seeing where the bullet hits, and then he adjusts it with a screwdriver. Anyway, they redid that scene in this telling of the Day of the Jackal. It's basically brought up into today, because there's cell phones and there's more background to the Jackal himself. The Jackal is very much a lone gunman, as it were, in the original movie. In this one here, he has a family, and there's this innuendo and all that kind of stuff, and of course, there's a police officer trying to find him. And I'm trying to remember what she was in, but it's all British, and it's like hour-long episodes, and it's really compelling. I mean, like, I highly recommend if you haven't seen Day of the Jackal. I think the last episode is out today. I stumbled across it, and fortunately I was able to watch it on demand. I don't think it's on. I'm trying to think what it's on in. It's on in an odd place. Let me see. Just watched what it says. It is on in Canada. It's on. Well, it's on Global TV. It's Stack TV. That's what it is. I don't watch Stack TV, but what is it on in the States? I don't know if, can I switch US here? No, I guess I can't. I can't look it up on the US. I don't know if you do have the app or the website, or you can figure out. Oh, it's one of the streaming services. Peacock. That's what it is. We don't get Peacock in Canada, I don't think.
Oh, it hasn't made its way over there.
No. So it's on. Peacock is an American thing, right?
Yeah, it's from NBC.
Yeah, it's funny because I think at the Golden Globes they said, I think the Nikki Glazer's joke was the Jackal. Nobody can find out who the Jackal is because nobody can find Peacock.
Yeah.
He's been hiding on Peacock. Yeah, that's might have been the joke. And then the other thing too, so as I mentioned earlier, I've been waiting for some of the 3D movies to come out. So I watched them on the Vision Pro, and one of the ones I watched, waiting for, Edge of Tomorrow, is currently on sale on Apple TV for $7.99 in Canada. So as soon as it came out, I immediately bought it. It's been renamed, which is kind of an interesting idea. Is it's called Live, Die, Repeat. Because it's about it's a science fiction story about a battle between these aliens who have the ability to reset the day. So you get to this time loop thing, right? Tom Cruise, our famous hero, gets covered in this alpha alien's blood, and so he becomes the one that can reset the day. So he keeps reliving this day over and over again, kind of like a battle or Groundhog Day, but it's very much like a video game, right? Because he keeps trying things and then dying, and then the day starts over again, right? And of course, I love this movie in 2D, and 3D just adds an extra. I mean, it wasn't like show-stopping 3D, but it does add an extra dimension to the movie itself, which kind of makes it enjoyable. So yeah, if you haven't seen Edge of Tomorrow, and you got a few shekels, I highly recommend. In my opinion, anyway, to me it's a 5-star movie, maybe 4.5, but 5 stars what I gave it. So available on Apple TV this week. And that's it for me. And then Jaime, you got Wallace and Gromit, which I've now seen twice. Yeah,
Wallace and Gromit, The Vengeance Most Foul. I got a chance to see this on Netflix. I definitely do recommend it. It's fun. You kind of know what you're getting in for. And they've got the penguin villain.
Feathers McGraw.
Yes, thank you. Who they get a lot of, he seems so sinister for a character design that's completely blank. It's just 2 dots and a beak.
and he bends his neck and cracks his neck all the time.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Wrong Trousers? Have you seen the original one that he's from?
I'm not sure if I have. I'm gonna have to go back and see that. That's the one where
it was the one that won the Academy, or I think it won an Oscar, where Wallace makes these mechanical pants, and which are trousers in England, and Feathers McGraw tries to steal the blue diamond in that one, and Wallace and Gromit foil him, right? So this is him trying to break out of his quote unquote jail. I don't want to spoil it for people. So he's been in jail. He breaks out to try and steal this diamond again, right? So, and it's been brought up to date with all the sort of modern mod cons, the Home Assistant and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. It's a fun one. There's lots of kind of interesting modern stuff around AI and hacking and etc. That's kind of unexpected for something that's largely timeless, like Wallace and Gromit. They're kind of could be in any decade more or less. So it's something I think people should watch.
Yeah, definitely. It's got lots of fun. I think I mentioned last week that it's got fun bits of Thunderbirds and the original Batman series and James Bond and all those kind of things. It's really well done. And it's all hand animated, right? It's there was a few 3D printed parts apparently, but apparently the Norbot his face is 3D printed, but the rest of the thing's all done with clay, with plasticine, right? So yeah, it's pretty cool. There's lots of stuff on, I don't know if you've been on the Facebook, but there's a lot of Facebook people posting little snippets, and there's all kinds of like, Easter eggs and things like that in it, which are fun, right? All based on Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it for another week. Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
Wow, I completely drew a blank there. Let me replay that. I'm on Twitter as @Dev with a hair. That,
that's staying in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's one of those like.
My God, it's only been 10 years.
It's like how many days since we had an accident? Well, it goes back to 0 now.
Yep. We got you. You're trying to remember the name of that website. Holy cow. All right. Well, my name is Timitra, Timmitra, on the Mastodon, mostly on Blue Sky. I guess that's probably the best way to get hold of me. But on Instagram as well. And until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. If you have feedback or questions, you can get in touch with us on the website. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
That's hilarious, the fact that you fnubbed that one.
It's so weird. It just completely went blank in my brain for a moment. It's one of those brain fart moments.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, that's it. But we have nothing to talk about without Jonathan here.
Yeah, hopefully his move is going well.
Yeah.
Is it probably very snowy and wintry? I did not look at the weather, but
we're in a cold cold snap right now. So let me call up the weather app and see what, because I have Woodstock's 1 degree right now. Here it's -9. It's 1 degree where he is. So he's he's probably walking around with a t-shirt on. Relatively speaking, Yeah. It's interesting where they are in terms of, he's an hour ahead in terms of the time zone, but the days seem longer because they're at the end of the time zone. You know what I mean?
Okay. I see.
Yeah, so the sunset for them, for sunset for me, well, here, let's look at this. Sunset for me is sunrise is at 7:49, right? But for him, sunrise will be at 8:10. So, was that 20 minutes later? So, yeah. Just being off on the tail end of the time zone, kind of thing. I don't know, where does the Pacific time zone end? Is it right on the border? Do you know, or is it because Hawaii's how far ahead is Hawaii from you guys?
Hawaii is 3 time zones, I think. Let me see. Pacific time. Okay, 7:45. GMT -8.
Yeah, we're -5.
Hawaii Aleutian time is GMT 10. -10.
Okay.
So they're 5:46 p.m. Yeah, they're 2 hours? 2 hours? Oh, they must not celebrate. They must not switch to for daylight savings time or anything. Because I think they're normally 3 hours behind.
Right. Yeah, it's really odd because I think Australia doesn't do it either, because a friend of mine, we have a meeting and time keeps changing, right? Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to go away and do some work. I don't know about you, but...
All right.
Well, talk to you. I got to catch up on some TV as well while we're at it.
Yeah, no worries.
Go see if Silo's on, and maybe I'll jump on the exercise bike and watch that. Okay, cool. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Lowe's knows how to help make your Super Bowl 59 party a touchdown. Let us help you prep your home to host with top brands like Charbroil, Blackstone, and LG, so you can be the MVP of game day. Plus, use the Lowe's app to find what you need for a seamless shopping run. Or huddle up with our Lowe's Red Vest associates to help make all your game time hosting decisions.